As you can hear,
Norway 7 Kilo Oscar, you're 591603, Echo United 115.
as you can hear, there's a rather a lot of contesting on it, or as I call it, dick testing, seeing how far you can urinate, and I refer to it as the amateur equivalent of a pissing contest. Not really my quite a thing. But people say sideband doesn't work on this radio. It obviously is working fine. People say the sideband doesn't resolve very well, but
Echo United 115.
so there's obviously nothing wrong there. Excuse about the orange tint, has to do with the horrible lights I use in here. What we're going to do now is we're going to go down to the CW section just to prove it will resolve CW. So see, the filter in it is about 3 kilohertz, 4 kilohertz, so it's not really a CW filter in there. But as you can see, there's plenty of activity on there. So anyone that says this radio doesn't pick up anything, I'm using my indoor antenna, which is 124 foot of wire going around my loft about 4 times through a 9-to-1 balun, or is it a 4-to-1? I think it's a 4-to-1 balun with a counterpoise on it. That's what I'm actually using. This radio has got RF gain, automatic RF gain. It's got a squelch. The squelch is really a noise squelch. I'll explain how that works. It doesn't sort of cut off the audio straight away, so you get that thumping noise you get with a squelch. What happens? Oh, it won't work if it's too strong. It sort of... Oh, it didn't seem to work today. I had it bloody working earlier. There we are. It sort of cuts the noise down, but doesn't cut the signal right off. So of course you have to sort of turn the attenuator down, so it's not hardly picking up a signal. And you can see it is working, but you sort of, it doesn't, it's more a noise squelch than anything else. It doesn't sort of cut the signal off until you sort of go above. At the moment the attenuator is on maximum. That's the way to do the noise. It also has an automatic RF gain, which means the RF gain works automatically and adjusts for overloads without you having to touch it. But I prefer to use the manual RF gain. That's what I use. At the moment I'm using a set on the wall wart I've got for it. that came with it, and that has, believe it or not, a transformer in it. Let's turn that down a bit. I'm sorry about the yellow. As soon as you put it towards the light, it all turns yellow. That horrible light I've got. But that's a little bit of tuning around on here. This radio, as I say, came from Radio Round Ball from the United Kingdom. There's a couple of small quirks on it. One of them is the signal meter. If you turn it off in rapid succession, say if you were to turn that off, sometimes the meter kicks backwards rather than goes completely to the zero. It goes before the zero. When you turn it on, it takes a while for that meter to become active again. What's happened is that there's some forward voltage leaking back through the AGC circuit when you go and turn it off. But if you wait for a couple of minutes and turn back on, see, the needle is still back there. And it's a quirk with that radio. Yeah, there you go, it came back then. And it's just one of those things. They expect you to turn it on once in a day and then turn it off, and by then the capacitors in the AGC have drained out. So the one way to cure this is to put a small capacitor across the signal meter, and very, very small, and that will drain the circuit, and that won't be a problem. But they probably didn't realise somebody like me might turn it off and put it back on again. As you see, the needle has gone backwards again, not off the rest, because it's still got. But anyway, that's not too much of a problem. I sometimes have to flick the power switch more than once to get that meter to run. But most of the time when people turn these on, they turn them on and they either put them into standby or whatever, you know, turn the volume down, or they turn up the squelch. You may not necessarily turn it off all day. So that may be what that's due to. That's one small quirk I think I can live with it. I think if I sent it back and asked for another one, it might have the same, because it seems to me like it's a design flaw than anything else. Right, the other thing, which is, most people notice the light goes off. If you press that switch, you'll notice the display winks if you hold it in. That will now stay on, the light will actually stay on. The other one is the beep. A lot of people have been complaining about the beep. Easy to deal with that. If you hold the 0, it turns the beep on. If you don't want that beep, you press the 0 again, and it says off in the display, and that turns the beep off. Now, it's really odd. A lot of people have been taking these apart and taking the beeper out. They don't even need to take it out. And it's simple. You just press that, it's on. Press that, 0 again, and it's off. Why are they taking it apart to disable something you can do from the bloody keyboard in the front? It's absolute madness. I'm surprised people haven't worked that one out. I'm sort of an Asperger's person. I tend to button push. I tend to find out how things are going to work. I've always found that's the best way. Now, if I was to do the bandwidth now, the bandwidth goes from wide to narrow without the beep. If I press that on, the beep is on now. See? And if I press that again, the beep is now off. and I can move the bandwidth and the beep isn't going. So that was an easy thing to do without taking it apart. There was one guy on the internet, what he did is he took his radio apart and so he hit the buzzer and the circuit board with a hammer. A couple of weeks later his set's burnt out, and I expect what's happened is the bits of metal that's come out of that buzzer has gone into the power supply board, and when he turned it on there was a big bang, he said, and some smoke. That's probably what it was. He said it was his modification. I thought, blinking hell. I said, that's a bit drastic. To take something apart and hit the board with a hammer and a screwdriver, I thought it just seems a little bit of an odd thing to do. I proudly announced it on the internet. 2 weeks later he announced that the rig had gone bang and it was a crap radio, and I thought, well, it probably would have been fine if he did what I did and didn't take it apart. So as I say, this radio's got a number of bands. It covers medium wave, short wave, long wave, FM, no DAB. I don't know whether the mate one that will cover that as well. Not exactly sure, but that would be a fairly good idea. It's got a DRM socket on the back. It's got a line out, a 455 out, which is the DRM thing. I think you could actually run SDR, some form of limited SDR software on it. It wouldn't be particularly wide, but I mean it would certainly work. And there's also a line in and an earphone socket. It's got an alarm clock function and a sleep function, which I'm never going to use because to me it's a radio, it's not an alarm clock. But I suppose if people want to use that, then it's fine. You can change the step by pressing the step button. It's also direct entry, and I'll just display that. It's 14021 on there at the moment. So if I was to put 12, so it tunes to 12, and I put 14, I can't remember what it was. If I put 14, 20 again. Oh, it's now on 14200. It should have been 14020. Never mind, we'll go back on the knob. Now it actually disappeared, that signal. So you can see the radio was going, and what I've got on the side is I've got my own loft area which I use for my 450D. The wall wart's plugged in the side. I don't know whether I like the idea of the knobs, the jacks for the aerial, and that being on the side, because if you want to push the unit into something, this thing is going to be sticking out, and so is this. But I suppose it was put there so you didn't have to pull the set out if you wanted to change the aerial. But to me, I would have stuck that on the back. But that's what happens when you buy a radio from abroad. This one actually was bought in England, but it's made in China. And a little story about this particular radio. It's a Tecsun S2000. A lot of people are going on about, well, you're better off with the Grundig one or the Eton one. What they don't realise is the same stinking radio. It's made in exactly the same factory. It's got a different badge on it. And those versions are no longer available. And I think the Eton was made for, a lot of them were sold in Canada. And the Grundig ones, a lot of those were sold in Germany, and I know America had a number of them. And tecsun tends to be the European version. When you buy it, you've got a 2-pin plug on it, and there's a little plug in there that you have to plug it into. Nobody seems to be making anything today with an English plug on it. It all seems to be what I call a foreign plug on it. Not being rude by saying that, but I think it's a bit naff not to for them to sell it with the correct plug. But of course, a lot of things are done that way. Otherwise, they'd have to manufacture separate power supplies for England, Germany, and elsewhere. So that's probably why they're done. It's like a universal thing. So that's understandable. I don't like it, but it is understandable. I got a number of things with that system. It looks a bit cumbersome and a bit ugly, but it's plugged in under the table here, so you can't see it. So it's not going to show there. Anyway, that's a quick poke around my my tecsun on amateur bands on 20 meters. And the bands have decided to go down while we've been doing this video. I've turned up the gain because the bands are dropping. So, I mean, you get used to the BFO. The BFO is a little bit sharp. It'd be nicer if it didn't be so coarse, but there again, I'm quite happy with that. I'm not too worried about it. So the radio actually is quite well made. I took it out of the box, and I thought, well, it's all plastic, so it's probably gonna have a lot of moulding marks on it and what I call imperfections, like you get with plastic. You get like these things that look like little cracks everywhere. And but I must admit, I'm very, very surprised at the build quality of this. The only thing that I find a bit subpar is the VFO knob. It's actually quite loose. It sort of wobbles. That's the only thing. But it doesn't seem to affect its workability. The other thing obviously being that slightly quirky meter. But nothing major. I can actually live with those things. What happens is when you turn off, there's some residual voltage in the AGC when you turn the volume off. So the meter gets a reverse voltaged, and the needle then goes back, and it then hangs there for a while. If you turn the set on straight away, the meter is not working. But if you leave it a few minutes, it's fine. So it's obviously a capacitor that's holding its charge in the AGC circuit. And the best way to counteract that is to put a small cap across the signal meter. So when you do that, that won't happen. So I think that would be the way to do that. I mean, I shan't bother with it. I'm not worried about it. Some people make a lot of modifications to things because it's got a bit quirky. It's a bit quirky, and they don't like that, and they get a little bit funny about it. Whereas me, I'm not worried about it. I mean, I haven't got very good eyesight, so I'm not even going to bother with the signal meter anyway. So that's the sort of poke around. And of here, you've got an attenuator, you've got direct entry keypad, which is very useful. And you can alter the bandwidth, even though it's not particularly narrow. It would have been nice if it had 3 bandwidths. One for wide, one narrow, and one that said 0.5 on it, so that it was better for CW. But you can buy a unit from Soda Beams and build it into a speaker if you wanted, and do it that way. So that's it. They're not very expensive to buy, and that's a simple job to do. So anyway, 73s to you all, and I hope you enjoyed this little bit dark, colour tinted video of just a little bit of a demonstration of the Tecsun S2000. They're £299 from Radio World in most shops in England. Do I think they're worth the money? And I think, yes, I think they're worth the money. I think they are worth the money. And it's a nice little desktop receiver. You can use it portable, but you may be better off with a PL660, something that you can carry around that's not far off pocketable. This is quite big, and it's quite heavy with batteries, and it's great if you've got a car and you drive onto the top of a hill and you stick it on your roof of your bonnet if it's not too warm. But manhandling your pocket by foot or in a backpack, it might be a bit heavy for that. So my suggestion is get one of these, and go out and get a 660 as well. Go and get the 660 as well, and then you got the best of both worlds, and I think that's reasonably priced. Very similar to this one. A number of people have said it's quite an expensive radio, but it's not expensive for a new shortwave radio. 150 to 300, even a little bit more, is not expensive for a shortwave radio. You know, because it's a specialist radio, and not everybody is buying shortwave radios, so they're not making them in huge numbers enough to make them at a lower price. You might be able to get it direct from Tecsun and save a bit of money, but remember, if you order it from Hong Kong, then it's likely you're going to have to pay VAT on it and import duty, so you probably won't save anything by doing it that way anyway. So bye bye, thank you very much, and have a good day.